It started as any other night. The city twinkled beyond my apartment window, each light a distant, silent heartbeat against the hush of evening. Inside, the scent of vanilla drifted from a candle on the coffee table, melting into the background hum of soft music spilling from my phone. I curled into my favorite chair, pages of a half-read paperback resting on my lap, its story blending into my own gentle solitude. Outside, faint horns and laughter echoed from the street, but they felt worlds away. I stretched, letting the comfort of routine wash over me, a cue for my mind to settle, my worries to drift for just a little while. But unease prickled at the corners of my peace. Maybe it was the way the shadows clung to the kitchen doorway, or how the wind rattled the window against its frame. I reached for my phone, scrolling through messages, searching for distraction from the vague sense that everything was about to change. My finger hovered over a contact. I meant to dial my best friend, to laugh, to share silly news, to confirm that normalcy still ruled my world. But as the number rang, a cold feeling darted through me, sudden and inexplicable. The call connected. Silence crackled on the other side. Deep, watchful, nothing like the familiar giggle I expected. My own voice faltered. "Hello?" I asked, tentative, caught between embarrassment and apprehension. That silence deepened, weighted by something I couldn't name. For a long heartbeat, I listened to the measured sound of someone breathing, a stranger cloaked in darkness on the other end of the line. "Did you mean to call me?" The voice was low, deadly calm. My heart stuttered. Every instinct begged me to hang up, to vanish back into my ordinary evening, but curiosity warred with fear as cold dread seeped into my bloodstream. I ended the call with shaking hands, trying desperately to laugh off the chill running down my spine, but nothing felt the same. Suddenly, the soft music seemed far away, the city lights distant, their comfort replaced by the creeping certainty that, with one accidental call, I'd set something unstoppable in motion. Down in the street, engines idled, black shapes gathering, hidden in the shadows. Panic rose to a harsh crescendo as I stared at my phone's screen. No new messages, no missed calls, nothing to suggest that the stranger on the line had been real, but the sharp adrenaline humming in my veins dealt me no comfort. I tried to laugh, the sound brittle and thin, forcing myself to believe it had been only a random wrong number. "Get a grip," I muttered, shoving my phone between couch cushions, seeking to trap my unease with it. Yet the apartment felt unfamiliar now, each creak and shifting shadow magnified, purposeful. Anxiety gnawed at my calm, its teeth growing sharper with every tick of the clock. Suddenly the purr of engines cut through my thoughts, deep, guttural, too close for coincidence. I crept to the window, heart stuttering in my chest. Down below, sleek black SUVs prowled to a stop beneath the glow of flickering street lamps. 4 doors opened in eerie unison. Men in dark suits and earpieces slipped out, moving with a predator's certainty, scanning the entrance of my building like they already knew exactly where to look. My breath caught, chest tight with terror. This couldn't be for me. It made no sense. Ordinary girls weren't visited by men in black SUVs. Ordinary evenings didn't transform from vanilla-scented comfort to the mouth of a nightmare with one errant call. I pressed myself flat against the wall, searching for explanations. I'd called the wrong number. Nothing more. But the image of those men, shadow-swift and grim, would not leave. They clustered near the building's entrance, radios pressed to their lips, their gazes hard and unforgiving. My mind conjured every crime movie and news report, the Mafia, secret societies, disappearances that began with a single knock at the door. What if I'd stumbled into something massive, the kind of mistake you didn't live to regret? Before I could move, footsteps pounded on the stairwell, deliberate and approaching my floor. I doubled back, mind flailing through desperate options. Hide, call someone, until a heavy fist thudded once, twice, 3 times against my door. The pounding was final, impossible to pretend I hadn't heard. I froze, senses warring between fight and flight, sweat beaded along my spine, fear clutching my every thought. "Open up. We only want to talk." The voice outside was rough, measured, betraying nothing, except the certainty that I was meant to obey. My mind screamed, but some small, stubborn part of me refused to let them sense my fear. I inched closer, hands shaking, determined now to fight, even as dread scraped raw inside me. This was no nightmare. My ordinary life, and my illusion of safety, had slipped through my fingers in the span of a 5-minute call. I gripped the doorknob, knowing that on the other side, fate, danger, and answers waited. My heart hammered with equal parts terror and reckless defiance as I drew a slow breath and reached for the lock, preparing to confront whatever darkness I had invited in with that single, accidental call. The lock clicked beneath my trembling fingers, each metallic turn an echo of my racing pulse. I forced myself to stand tall as the door inched open, revealing a wall of dark-suited strangers. In their midst, one figure stood out, not the tallest, not the broadest, but the one whose quiet presence seemed to command the air around him. His eyes, impossibly dark and unflinching, fixed on me with a gaze that stripped me bare in a heartbeat. "Miss, may we come in?" The largest man at the front spoke, his tone neither polite nor unkind, a blandness that chilled me more than threats. I hesitated, uncertainty warring with the deep, primal need not to appear weak. "Why?" My voice was steadier than I felt, only cracking around the edges of the question. Silence hung heavy before the smaller, sharper-eyed figure, a man who radiated the kind of calm only danger wears comfortably, stepped forward. He didn't introduce himself. He didn't need to. The quiet authority in his movements, the subtle deference the others gave him, told me all I needed to know. This was the man I'd called by mistake. The Mafia boss. His lips curled in the faintest, almost pitying smile, as if he saw straight through me to every fear, every secret I tried to hide. "You dialed a number that's supposed to be unreachable," he said, voice low and unhurried. "We don't like surprises. Who gave you my contact?" My mind raced, desperately scanning memory for something, anything that could make sense of this moment. I shook my head, words tumbling out too fast. "It was an accident, I swear. I thought I was calling someone else. I didn't mean—" "You expect me to believe that?" The challenge was soft, but the threat underneath was very, very real. The room felt smaller, the world reduced now to the tension crackling between us. "I do," I whispered, meeting his gaze even as my knees threatened to buckle. "You're frightened, but you're not lying," he observed, his attention lingering on my face as if weighing my soul. I sensed the men behind him shifting, hungry for violence, but he raised a hand and the room stilled. For a moment, I almost pitied him. There was a flicker of something wounded, something lonely in his eyes. But he hid it well. "We'll find the truth," he said finally, stepping inside without asking again. His men followed, fanning out with silent, mechanical precision. One blocked the door, another scanned the room for God knew what. I backed away, every instinct screaming at me to run, and every bit of pride forcing me to stand my ground. "Do you know who I am, miss?" he asked, a cruel kind of amusement glinting in his eyes. I shook my head again, refusing to give him the satisfaction of fear. "I'm beginning to," I murmured, though my voice trembled. "Good. Then listen closely," he said, lowering his face to mine, crowding my senses until his presence was all I could feel. "You've entered a world you can't just walk away from. Every choice from here has consequences." Lightning tension arced between us. His danger, my defiance. I half expected him to shout or threaten, but instead he studied me, as if searching for something I didn't yet know I had. "We'll talk," he said, "and you'll tell me everything." As his words trailed off, his eyes lingered one last time before he turned away, issuing silent commands to his men. The balance of control in my own home had shifted completely. The shadow of the Mafia boss stretched across my life, daring me to survive the night. The door closed behind me and I realized this was only the beginning. The hours blurred together, thick with suspicion and the constant pressure of being watched. The boss, whose name I still didn't know, prowled my living room with a predator's patience, his every glance calculated, an interrogation without threat, just the measured weight of expectation. My nervous explanations spilled out, painfully honest, but each word felt stolen, pried from me by his unspoken authority. "I made a mistake," I repeated, voice raw from desperation. "There's nothing I could possibly know about your world." The boss didn't reply, just studied me, as if searching for evidence beneath my skin. Minutes passed. One of his men found my phone, an ordinary device held up like a relic. "She's clean," he reported quietly. Still, the boss lingered. "You see my dilemma, don't you?" he finally said, voice almost gentle. "I can either believe you, or I can make sure you never tell anyone what happened here." The threat was there, but it felt strangely hollow, like he was tired of making choices that sealed fates. His gaze drifted out the window, jaw tight with something that looked almost like regret. "You called a number that's not in the books. Not by accident. Not ever. If I let this slide, my enemies see weakness. If I harm you, I betray everything I protect." I swallowed, fear warring with a strange urge to stand beside him, to guess at the burdens he carried. As daylight crept over the city, his men exchanged wary glances. One grumbled, "We're risking exposure, Alexei." The boss, Alexei, didn't flinch. "We're not leaving until I'm certain," he said, turning to me. I stood my ground, chin lifted to mask shaking hands. "Then what?" I asked, a challenge but also a plea. For a moment, the edges of his cool demeanor blurred, and he answered in a voice so low I almost missed it. "You're staying with us." "Until I'm sure you pose no danger," anger surged. A protest caught in my throat. "You can't keep me prisoner." Alexei arched a brow, lips twitching with amusement. "Would you prefer to take your chances out there alone? My world isn't kind to accidental guests." The contrast was sharp. My yearning for freedom versus his cold logic. Every instinct shouted for escape, but reason whispered that safety, however fragile, now depended on him. The lines hardened between us. Suspicion versus necessity. Trust as fragile currency. Hours passed with quiet moments, the buzzing of my phone now forbidden, the silent space between our glances filled with questions neither of us dared voice. Yet, a strange alliance began to form. When I nearly spilled coffee-making breakfast for the intruders, Alexei appeared, too close, his presence both comfort and irritation. "You're shaking," he observed, voice gentler than I expected. "It's not every day a mafia boss invades my kitchen," I retorted, sarcasm a shield. His eyes lingered, a smile ghosting over his lips. "I suppose not." The line between enemy and protector blurred, just a bit. Later, as dusk fell and the city's rhythm pulsed beyond my window, Alexei confided in me. Just a sliver. "Not all choices are ours," he murmured, his tone heavy, haunted. "Sometimes the world forces us together." I looked at him, searching for warmth behind that iron mask, a glimmer of the man beneath. We were uneasy partners now, fate's joke and necessity's consequence. I knew this alliance could collapse with one wrong move, but for now, the safety in his shadow was the only protection I had. As he checked the windows, scanning the streets below, I wondered if the danger outside was any more terrifying than the secrets we kept inside. The night pressed in, a leaden weight, and I sensed the risks growing in the silence between heartbeats. But I also saw the flicker of humanity in the mafia boss's eyes, just enough for hope, or for heartbreak. The lead-in to the next day was clear. Partnership built on desperation, mistrust that might yet become something more. For now, I was forced to walk in step with a man whose world I barely understood, and the tension was only beginning to unravel. Days cascaded into uneasy patterns, punctuated by glances that lingered too long and confessions kept tightly sealed. Trapped in Alexei's orbit, I drifted through his shadowed world. Coffee brewed under watchful eyes, conversations stripped bare of comfort. I sensed his men's skepticism, their silent accusations swirling in the corners. Every word I spoke sounded like treason to someone, but it was Alexei who unsettled me most. He saw me, the real me, behind every defensive quip and anxious breath. The gravity between us shifted, desire braided into mistrust, an attraction neither of us wanted to name. Questions hung in the air. Why me? Why would a single misdial trigger such consequences? Did someone set me up? Or was fate, cruel, chaotic, pulling our lives together for reasons yet revealed? Some nights, sleep came only in fits, haunted by glimpses of Alexei pacing my living room, his silhouette etched against the streetlights. He spoke little, each word measured as if truth was dangerous currency. Once, I caught him staring at an old photograph. Family, love, something lost long ago. For a flickering moment, he looked impossibly human. The conflict deepened with every stolen look, every shared silence. He protected me, but not without cost. I began to see shards of vulnerability beneath his iron facade. A flash of regret when his men spoke too harshly. The way his hand lingered on the door, as if weighing whether to shut me out or keep me close. Yet, for all the grace beneath, I saw the scars too. Rumors of betrayal in the Mafia's ranks, loyalty demanded but rarely returned. I glimpsed bruises on his forearms, unspoken evidence of battles never mentioned. Questions pooled in my heart like rainwater. Too many, too heavy. Suspicion gnawed at me. What if Alexei's enemies knew where I was? Fear transformed into paranoia. I discovered my phone had been tampered with. Contacts missing, messages erased. A chilling reminder that trust was fleeting currency here. One afternoon, a stranger followed me. An ordinary man, except for the way his gaze slid past me before settling on Alexei's car. I rushed home, adrenaline spiking, every instinct screaming that danger lingered near. In his apartment, tension finally broke. "You're keeping secrets," I said, pushing past caution. "So are you," he replied with infuriating calm. Sparks flew. I stormed across the room, voice brittle. "I didn't choose this. I'd never—" His hand caught my wrist before I could retreat. "Neither did I," Alexei admitted, voice raw with something darker, pain laced with longing. Our argument dissolved into silence thick enough to drown in, then a confession. Late one night, Alexei sat beside me, shadows curling around us. "There are wolves outside these walls," he whispered, voice shaking. "Literal or otherwise?" I joked, half-hearted. He didn't laugh. "Both." I stared at him, heart thudding as an impossible truth glimmered in his eyes. Sometimes the Mafia isn't the scariest thing in the dark. His admission left me reeling. What kind of world had I stumbled into? The revelation cracked something open in both of us. Trust, cautious and trembling. Alexei narrated tales of betrayal. Friends lost, enemies gained. In his world, love was more dangerous than bullets. I realized my vulnerability was my greatest weapon. My honesty, the one thing his power couldn't crush. But just as I found footing, another betrayal twisted the knife deeper. My best friend texted frantic, warning me to leave. The Mafia had discovered my involvement, spreading rumors I was a mole. Alexei's men eyed me with icy suspicion. Suddenly, the fragile trust we'd built threatened to crumble. The contrast was brutal. The safety of his arms versus isolation outside them, loyalty tested by forces that cared nothing for innocence. One stormy night, thunder rattling the windows, Alexei confronted me. "Did you betray me?" The accusation landed like a slap. "No," I gasped, facing him down, heartbreaking. "You were the one thing I hadn't lost." For a breathless moment, his anger melted, grief twisting across his face. "I believe you," he murmured, pulling me close. That first touch, hesitant, electric, felt like fire and longing all at once. Yet conflict lingered, suspended in the air. We were bound now by secrets and longing, enemies growing at the door, hope buried beneath dread. As midnight approached, I lay beside Alexei, 1,000 questions on my lips, knowing tomorrow might bring answers, or more heartbreak. The lead-in was clear. Our trust faced its ultimate test, and everything we'd built was about to be threatened by a force darker and more deadly than either of us imagined. Thunder clapped in the small hours, rattling loose memories and fragile hopes. Alexei stalked the apartment, dread coiling in the tense set of his shoulders. I watched him, unease growing in my chest, aware that the fragile web of trust between us was stretched to breaking. The clock leapt past midnight, each minute weighed down by dread. A new threat brewed just out of sight. Every shadow in the hallway became an omen. A single message pierced the silence. Alexei's phone screen flashed with a name I'd never seen before. He stiffened, jaw clenched. "They know you're here," he murmured, voice like cracked ice. Both the Mafia and others. My blood ran cold. Others? I pressed, heart hammering. He hesitated. Ancient pain darkened his eyes. Some men hunt for power, he whispered, some for blood. Tonight, maybe both. Before I could process his warning, shots rang out below. Building glass shattered. Alexei's men lunged to protect us, barking orders as chaos erupted outside. Stay here, Alexei commanded, grabbing a weapon from beneath the sofa. I refused, adrenaline pushing me forward. I can't just hide. Panic and determination waged war inside me. Alexei caught my hand and pulled me close, breath hot against my ear. I'm not losing you. Not tonight. Terror surged as masked figures burst through the entrance, weapons raised. I dove behind the kitchen counter, heart pounding. Alexei moved with uncanny speed, his eyes burning with something inhuman, his voice a snarl. No one hurts her. The clash of gunfire and screams blurred into a nightmare symphony as men fell and fled. One attacker cornered me, breath sour, gun raised. I forced myself not to sob. Alexei appeared, silent and lethal. His body moved faster than possible, a blur between man and myth. The struggle ended with piercing howls that should not belong in any city. The attacker thrown back by strength far beyond human. Blood and confusion smeared the scene. Alexei's eyes glowed beneath the flicker of failing lights, his secrets rising to the surface in ways I'd never imagined. I scrambled to my feet, breath hitching as I stared. Alexei's form shunned the ordinary, his muscles rippling, teeth sharper than rage. Terror and awe slammed together in my chest. Alexei, what are you? He hesitated, pain and longing warring beneath his inhuman gaze. In a voice both beast and man, he answered, I wanted to wait until you trusted me. But now I have no choice. Behind us, wounded men groaned, chaos crackling like static. Alexei shielded me with his body, his words tumbling out between animal and human. I'm more than you guessed. If you run, I'll find you. If you stay, you'll know danger beyond the Mafia. The world dissolved into myth, rules rewritten. My mind buckled, fighting terror with curiosity. If monsters exist, could I trust this one? I forced my voice steady, defiant. I want the truth, even if it destroys me, I whispered. Alexei nodded, resigned. Tonight you'll see it all. But there was pain in his jaw, guilt like shadow. He'd hidden too much, perhaps to protect me, perhaps to save himself. We barricaded ourselves in a back room. The thudding footsteps grew closer, enemies converging, some mortal, some not. Alexei pressed a pistol into my palm, his hand lingering a moment too long. Heat and fright tangled where he touched me. You have to choose, fear me or fight beside me. I stared at him, ancient horror tugging at my reason. But bravery flashed inside me, fierce and reckless. I'll fight, I promised, heart thrumming with more than fear. As the night stretched thin and brittle, we faced wave after wave of attack. Each skirmish revealed more. Alexei, not just a mafia boss, but a wolf in human skin, and me, no longer an innocent bystander, but a partner in survival, bathed in both blood and hope. I felt my soul bend and steel itself anew. Finally, as dawn threatened and the last invader fell, Alexei turned to me. No going back, he whispered, sorrow and desire tangled in his voice. Everything had changed. Trust and betrayal, myth and reality, safety and danger, all lines rewritten. I saw my own reflection in his haunted eyes. No longer victim, not yet predator, poised on the razor's edge of transformation. The turning point had come, and with it, a cliffhanger. Would I accept the truth and risk my heart, or run from all that Alexei's world demanded? As the sun crept in, casting gold across blood and broken glass, I realized whatever choice I made, nothing would ever be the same. The lead-in couldn't be clearer. In the aftermath, sanctuary might be fleeting, but the need for connection burned brighter than fear. The apartment bore the scars of chaos, splintered furniture, dark stains on the floor, morning light streaming through broken glass. In the aftermath, everything felt muffled, as if the world held its breath just for us. Alexei and I found ourselves in the quiet ruins, battered but alive, wariness fading into an intimacy neither of us could have anticipated. I slid down the wall, knees pulled to my chest, exhaustion slamming into me like a wave. Alexei, still stained with blood and secrets, watched me in silence. The monster was gone from his face, the man left behind. "You're safe for now," he finally murmured, his voice edges rough, but softer than I'd ever heard. "That might be the first truthful thing I've said to you." I almost laughed, the sound edged with hysteria and relief. He collapsed into a chair opposite me, a weary king thrown from his throne. In the quiet, we measured the distance between us. "I should hate you," I whispered, voice trembling. "But I don't." Alexei's mouth twitched, bruised and uncertain. "You're afraid. You should be." Our eyes met, danger, desire, and understanding swirling together. "I should be," I agreed. "But I'm not sure of what. Of you, or of losing the person I was before tonight." Contrast rolled between us, comfort laced with the memory of violence. The warmth of his gaze against the cold fear still thrumming in my veins. Alexei knelt beside me, hands outstretched, not touching, requesting, not demanding. "Let me see," he said softly, and his fingers brushed mine, gentle, almost reverent. I shivered at the contact. Instead of retreating, I leaned toward him. He gathered me close, his arms strong but cautious, as if holding something he feared would crack. For the first time, neither of us wore masks. I felt his heart race against mine, the heat of his breath, the startling vulnerability in the sharp lines of his face. We didn't speak, words rendered useless by everything we'd endured. In that fragile sanctuary, I allowed myself to grieve the life I'd lost, and consider the one still ahead, however dangerous. Outside, the city stirred, life oblivious to the war just fought. Inside, Alexei pressed a kiss to my temple, almost shy. "I'll keep you safe as long as I can," he promised, a vow weighed with more than human burden. "You don't have to be the monster," I whispered, tracing the outline of his jaw. His eyes shone with gratitude and heartache, a king among ruins who could never quite claim redemption. The spell of calm was fleeting, a pause in the storm, not its end. But in those few stolen hours, we found a strange, necessary peace, wound together by fear and hope. As the day thickened and Alexei scanned the horizon from the window, tension coiled anew in his stance. "They'll come for us again," he said, truth and sorrow braided tight. The sanctuary would not last, and we both knew it. But for that moment, beneath golden light and the hush of aftermath, I rested in his arms, ready to face whatever nightfall would bring, so long as hope lingered, fragile and stubborn between us. If sanctuary was a fleeting illusion, its loss was a thunderclap. By afternoon, the fragile peace between us fractured. Alexei paced beside the window, shoulders tense, the world outside spinning into fresh uncertainty. The Mafia's enemies weren't content to retreat. Word spread like wildfire. Reports of my presence in Alexei's apartment splintered any hope of laying low. I could almost taste the betrayal in the air. An uneasy alliance formed among those loyal to Alexei, but whispers gnawed at us. I saw it in the cold stares of his men, the clipped tones in his cell phone conversations. One called me the weakness, another muttered about her ruining everything. I shrank, wounds reopening. Yet, through every doubt and accusation, Alexei defended me. "If harming her is your idea of loyalty," he growled, "find another boss." But loyalty cuts both ways. It soon became clear. To protect Alexei, I had to make myself a target, and a sacrifice. The threats crept closer. My friend's frantic texts grew darker. "They're coming for you next." The message shook my resolve. Could I run and doom Alexei, or stay and risk everything for someone whose heart I barely understood? The contrast gnawed at me. Freedom versus fidelity. Safety versus love. Late that night, Alexei revealed the cost of survival. "There's a way out," he said, encircling my hands with his own. "You leave now. Go somewhere I can't follow, and they'll lose interest. But I lose you." The words bruised both of us. Or you stay, and we fight together. No guarantees, just pain and truth. His eyes softened, haunted. There's another way, but it's the hardest. You take the blame, force their hand, let them think you betrayed me. Then I have an excuse to protect you, whatever it costs. Sacrifice shimmered at the edge of every heartbeat. I could see in Alexei the burdens of leadership, the fine line between shielding his people and destroying them. For the first time, I truly understood the pain beneath his power. You've given everything for them, I said softly. Now let me give something for you. The decision weighed heavy. Love or loyalty, survival or sacrifice. I paced the battered apartment, every sound amplified, every shadow threatening. The pain of nearly losing Alexei in last night's assault returned, raw and consuming. I watched his face, the struggle in his eyes. Protect me or risk everyone's wrath. I'm not worth that, I whispered, hesitant. But Alexei pulled me close, words fierce. You're worth everything. As dawn broke once more, the plan unfurled. We staged a confrontation, arranging for his men to overhear me, convincing them I'd spilled secrets to the Mafia's rivals. It hurt, more than any wound or fear. Alexei played his part, shouting, banishing me to an empty room under guard. I fought tears, forcing myself to remember the cause, protection, not betrayal. The fallout was brutal. Alexei's world shunned me. I became a pariah, living only in the fringe shadows of his protection. Doubt burned in my veins, but beneath every insult, every cold shoulder, I found resilience. I was fighting for more than myself, for Alexei's survival, and perhaps for the chance to love without barriers. Yet, as danger grew outside our walls, a new threat loomed, one that demanded my loyalty not just to Alexei, but to my own truth. The Mafia's greatest enemy was gathering, and only a sacrifice, one that might cost me love, freedom, and even identity, could buy a chance for tomorrow. I can bear hatred, I whispered during a stolen moment with Alexei. I can't bear losing you. He kissed me, desperate and wild, as if it was the last time. Whatever happens, he promised, I'll be your shield, even if you believe it's all lost. Tears slipped between us, love stretching taut to the breaking point. The escalation was merciless. By nightfall, enemies massed downstairs, ready for war. I slipped a note into Alexei's hand. Win or save me. I trust you. As the last rays of sun faded, our sacrifices wound tighter, fate wrapping us in its cruel embrace. I steeled myself, love and loyalty fused with pain and defiance. For a breathless moment, I found peace, knowing my choices, however flawed, were born of something greater than fear. The lead-in was clear. The final confrontation waited just beyond the threshold, where every risk, secret, and act of sacrifice would ignite. The night was impossibly still, as if the entire city was holding its breath. An electric charge threaded through the darkness, every stray sound thundering in my chest. I stood alone by the window, the chill of betrayal clinging to my skin, watching headlights bob in the alley below. Alexei moved in the shadows, a force both hunted and hunting. Every fiber of my body buzzed with fear and anticipation. The moment of decision had come. A loud crash erupted outside the apartment, splintering what remained of our fragile world. Shadows tumbled through the stairwell, enemy footfalls, cruel and inexorable. Alexei's men rose from their restless sanctuary, forming a last desperate wall. At his silent command, they took their positions, loyalty measured not in words, but in how they would bleed. I pressed against the wall, heart beating panic against my ribs. Was this what it felt like, the prelude to obliteration? Alexei found me, his expression drawn in lines of anger and terror, and something rawer than either. "Stay hidden. Don't let anyone." He broke off, words strangled. But I knew I could not simply cower, not after everything we'd survived. The front door burst open. Enemy soldiers, faces twisted by hatred and greed, poured inside. The battle erupted with a violence that stole the breath from my lungs. Gunfire chewed through the furniture. Behind it all, a chorus of howls, inhuman, terrifying, echoed down the hallway. Alexei unleashed his fury, moving faster than any human, a blur of teeth and claws in the moonlight. The sight was both beautiful and monstrous. Love and war, loyalty and savagery, colliding in the flickering half-light. I fought too, in my own way. A bottle to the skull here, a fierce scream to distract an attacker there. Fear was my weapon now, wielded for him and for my own battered heart. The lines of battle were slippery. Friends became foes and foes, friends, as hidden allegiances ripped open. I saw one of Alexei's trusted guards fall, betrayal painted in blood and shock across his face. Time shattered. Through the haze, I saw Alexei battling the Mafia's leader, shifting between man and wolf, agony and rage wrestling beneath his skin. "Why her?" the rival sneered. "Is she worth everything?" Alexei's answer was a vicious growl, eyes locked on mine even as he fought, as if I alone could anchor him to what remained of his soul. A sudden explosion rocked the building. I was flung backward, glass splinters biting into my arms. Dazed, I saw Alexei pinned, blood blooming bright on his shirt, the rival's gun to his head. Terror spiked through me, burning away every hesitation, every doubt and ghost of self-preservation. I lunged, acting not on reason but on the gravitational pull between us. My voice, hoarse from fear and longing, cut through the chaos. "Stop. If you want to destroy him, you'll have to go through me." The words rang out, reckless and pure. For a moment, certainty crystallized. Love was stronger than order, stronger than hate. The Mafia's leader snarled, dismissive, but his aim wavered. Alexei surged upward then, beast and man in seamless concert. He overpowered the rival, subduing him in a violence both elegant and brutal. In the aftermath, blood slicked the floor, and the rival boss lay groaning beneath Alexei's boot. The room pulsed with the energy of barely averted tragedy. But just as the dust began to settle, another shot rang out, this one finding its mark in Alexei's side. I screamed, running to him, hands pressed desperate and shaking against his wound. He shuddered, eyes wild and vulnerable, and with effort pulled me close. "I'm sorry," he gasped, blood on his lips. "If I lose myself, remember who I was with you." I cradled his face, panic giving way to defiant hope. "You're not lost. I'm here. I'll fight for you now." Tears streaked my cheeks, grief and love locking together as enemies pounded up the hallway again. "Don't let go," I begged. Alexei smiled, raw and breaking. "Never." Again the doors crashed open, reinforcements for the Mafia enemy. I pulled Alexei behind a toppled table, firing blindly, yelling warnings to his allies. In the blur, I realized it was more than muscle and bravado that kept Alexei going. It was me, my faith in his humanity, my willingness to risk everything. He transformed again, the wolf barely restrained, but with every savage act, he shielded me from death. We fought side by side, the world reduced to breath and blood and stolen glances. When the last of the enemies fell, silence thundered back into the room. I knelt beside Alexei, exhaustion and relief crashing over us like a tidal wave. "You saved me," he said, wonder in the edges of his words. "You saved yourself," I whispered, tracing his jaw tenderly. But the battle's end was not the end. Sirens wailed in the near distance. Alexei's remaining men gathered their wounded, eyes raw from loss and victory alike. I knew we'd crossed an invisible line, one where love and survival no longer existed in separate worlds. I looked at Alexei, at the man and the monster joined in impossible unity, and I chose him all over again. Yet outside, the night still boiled with unanswered threats. Alexei squeezed my hand, eyes dark with promise and apology and need. "We're not free yet," he cautioned, "and there will be a price." As dawn crept over the battered city, I clung to the hope that, broken as we were, our love could bind us tighter than any chain. The final confrontation had changed everything. Not just the fates of a mafia boss and a bystander, but of two souls remade by war and devotion. The lead-in was sharp as a blade. The aftermath would demand choices as perilous as any battle, and the war for peace, for us, had only begun. The morning after didn't feel like triumph. Light bled hesitantly through smeared windows, painting the apartment in bruised gold and shadow. Sirens faded, leaving behind a hush thick with exhaustion and the sharp tang of blood on broken glass. I sat curled beside Alexei, his wounds freshly bandaged, both of us hollowed by the battle. In that fractured dawn, our closeness felt fragile, guilt and longing twisting through every gentle touch. Alexei's men moved through the apartment like ghosts. Some wept openly, others disappeared into corners for tense, whispered calls. Outside, the city resumed its indifferent rhythm, never pausing to mourn the casualties caught between love and war. I leaned my head on Alexei's shoulder, heart aching with the weight of everything unsaid. "We survived," I murmured, unable to decide if it was a consolation or a curse. Alexei's eyes closed, lashes dark against bruised skin. "For now." His voice was raw, longing snared by regret. The cost of survival counted out in grief, for the lost, for the choices that had remade us. We shared a silence that spoke more than words. Hush for the dead, reverence for the living who loved fiercely despite the threat of loss. He traced patterns on Alexei's palm, each scar a reminder of what we'd risked. He smiled, a fleeting warmth melting the sorrow. "You changed me," he whispered. "I don't know if I can be the man you need, but I want to try." My throat tightened. "You already are. I just wish love didn't always hurt so much." Contrast shimmered across the room, hope cracking open despite heartbreak. The beginnings of healing stitched through fear and uncertainty. Alexei brushed a tear from my cheek. "I'll give you freedom if you want it. You don't have to stay." The prospect stung more than I confessed. Freedom meant losing the future we might carve together. Before I could answer, muffled footsteps stopped at the doorway. One of Alexei's men, young, bruised, eyes glittering, handed me a file. "This was left for you," he said, voice nervous. I opened it, dread rising. Inside, pictures of me and Alexei, surveillance notes, threats scrawled in strange hands. A last message. "This isn't over." I shivered, adrenaline hot under my skin. Alexei's grip tightened. His eyes searched mine for resolve, for something stronger than fear. I straightened. "Let them come. We're done running." The words came out braver than I was, but the look in Alexei's eyes carved courage into my bones. "We face this together," he said, voice steady. We buried the fallen in an abandoned lot at dusk, the city watching with cool indifference. I spoke in halting prayer, asking for peace, for strength. Alexei placed a rose on the grave of the man who'd once doubted me, eyes wet, silence blooming between sobs. "I could have saved him," he said. "I could have saved all of you." I took his hand. Grief meeting grief, hope meeting hope. The day bled into night. Alexei gathered me close as we returned to the shattered apartment, plans forming between us in the waning light. Outside, engines idled, voices Argentinian, Russian, American. Everyone wanted a piece. Inside, the struggle to heal began. We patched wounds, whispered dreams, planned new escapes. But uncertainty hung, a curtain never fully drawn. On our battered bed, I confessed, "I love you, even if your world swallows me whole." Alexei trembled. What if it already has? We found solace in each other's arms, love threaded through fear. Yet even as our passion burned, doubts nipped at the edges. Could we survive the next attack, the next betrayal? Just before sleep, a knock sounded, soft, insistent, ominous. Alexei tensed, preparing for war. I lay beside him, heart hammering, wondering if this was the beginning of part 2, the never-ending fight for peace, for love, for a life together against all odds. Hope glimmered. Heartbreak sharpened, and the story remained unfinished. The last words on my lips were a promise. I choose you, again and again, no matter the danger. Outside, the night deepened, uncertainty blooming, and the future waited, ready to test every vow we made in the ruins of yesterday.